I actually wanted to start with something that you said on the pod recording, which came out today. Everyone should listen to it. There was one thing that I pushed to the end, but it was clearly, I think, the best thing we talked about the whole show was there was an article that the BBC published a couple years ago, and we'll share it on Substack too. But basically, it actually doesn't take as many people to topple an authoritarian regime as you think, and the tactics are interesting too. So why don't you get into that first?
Yeah, so it's not just the BBC. This was a long-standing bunch of studies over the course of history of how many people it took to totally change a society, totally disrupt a dictator, all those kinds of things. Create whether it was the civil rights movement or anything that actually changed society and disrupted it and took out um, authoritarian. It requires 3.5% of the population of the country to be engaged in peaceful protest. And once you hit that number, every time that number's been hit, and the BBC article goes through every single moment in history, every single regime that fell when the public engagement in peaceful protest reached 3.5% of the population. What I found fascinating about that um, is, currently all the independent estimates of the hands-off rallies, or sort of the week each week when there's or every time we have a target date for all of us to rally and protest, and I've participated in them at outside NOAA weather station. Um, 3 million people have shown up to those. So 12% of the American population is going to be around
Other way,
uh,
3.5% is 12 million.
12 million.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So the math is pretty simple here, right? We already have 3 million. If we each got one more friend, one more family worker, one more coworker, uh, one more American, uh, to come with us to the next one, we would go from 3 million to 6 million, and then obviously we all do it again, you get to 12 million. The numbers, we basically have to triple or quadruple from where we're at, but it's basically two doubles and we're there. So I think the growing target here, I think, is to get to 12 million people actively protesting peacefully across the country. Once we do that, it tips a lot more Americans to join, and then the dominoes all start to fall, and the regime falls. That's how it's happened. And again, the BBC article will put it. We'll post it on Substack, but it's clear that if you go back through every time, it's a successful overthrow or removal of the authoritarian. It's been when the key point. Everything else, whether the Democratic Party gets its act together, any of that stuff, it was never any of those things. It was always when the people rose at and got over 3.5% of the population in peaceful protests.
So I'm just going to get to a couple reader questions just right away. And I think this one is I think I know the answer already, but this is from Adam in Houston. Joe, if they put you in charge of the DNC, what would be your first move? And how would you work to energize the base? So how would you get the 12 million out?
I literally create a website that where people could sign up to be among the 12 million with a counter on it, and let people know that they could, so they're seeing us go from 3 million to 3.5 to 4 million, who coming to the next event, and where everybody could find every single event in the country, protest in the country, actually engage in helping people. One of the things that happened, one of the polls I saw showed an enormous number of the American people, I think something like 60%, um, were willing to actively consider protesting what's going on. It's for different reasons. Some because they were protesting what's happening with veterans or wanted to protest, but a large number. And when they asked why they hadn't done it. The next question was, okay, great. You said you're willing to do this, but you haven't. Why not? The number one answer was, no one asked me. I didn't know where to go. I don't know where to go. One of the things I think that's going on out there is like when Bernie Sanders says, come to my rally, that's, oh, okay. Somebody's telling me this is something I can do to protest what's going on. I'm sure many of them are supporters of Bernie. I think many others are people who just finally there's somebody who's telling me what I can do, giving me a place to go, an event where I can stand with 30,000 other people and say enough. So I think that's what we need to have. The DNC needs to create that, and I think they need to say one of the other things I think would be to say it's a big tent protest. We don't care whether you're a Democrat or not. It's a protest for democracy, and red, white, and blue come out, and here's where you. I wouldn't call it blue anything or even DNC, but sponsored, uh, uh, resourced by the DNC, but calling on to help build the big tent party that will throw Trump out and the authoritarians out.
Well, and
One of
again,
the
not to rehash what we talked about yesterday, but PRI survey just came out.
yeah
52% of Americans say Trump is, quote, a dangerous dictator whose power should be limited before he destroys American democracy. This is no longer a he said, she said about the definition of democracy. That could not
yeah
be more clear. It could not be more direct. And there are a lot more of us meaning the people that recognize the threat and are willing to do something about it, than people who think the threat is Hillary Clinton's emails or Joe Biden's faux corruption or whatever the hell.
Yeah, no, that's what that was the first time I think somebody asked a question that because it's always with nuance. This was pretty clear language. He's a dangerous dictator whose power must be constrained before he destroys American democracy, with the word democracy in it. All the talk about, people care about kitchen table issues and all that thing. It's all true, but it's clear that the first 100 days have opened the door where now it's clear that there are more of us than there are of them, more people who actually believe he's dangerous to the future of the country and our democracy and to the American experiment. And so that getting to that 12 million, 52% of 300 or so million of us, there's a pool of 150 million out there who say he's dangerous and needs to be pulled back in. We got to get like 10% of that number. I mean, it's a very small number. And then that's why, by the way, that 3.5% triggers the rest of the 150 million. I mean, and then that starts spilling, as you're seeing 17% of Republicans in that PRI poll said they believe he's a dangerous dictator who needs to have his power constrained before he destroys American democracy. That's 17% of Republicans. I mean, given where the bowing and the praising of the king by the majority of the MAGA Senate and House now, it's astonishing number that 17% of Republicans are that strongly. I mean, sort of respond to that strong wording and say no more. So that's what I think. I just think it was that poll and the BBC article, and there's several others that get into the reasoning of the 3.5% number. But those two things combined means, in my view, we're at a tipping point here where we are the ones who can tip it. We're the ones who, if we just bear down, get one more friend, one more family, that's where, if the DNC or others would make this. I know Indivisible's out there. There's a lot of groups, 5051, all posting events and things. But if we could get a pro-democracy, big tent protest going that built every single, every month, the goal is to double from last month. would be that's where I would go. That's where I think if we had every Democrat, Adam Kinzinger, Liz Cheney, everybody, all the way over to AOC and Bernie, a broad coalition actually leading a public protest once a month where the whole rest of us, all our job was to get one more person there, we would in a course of 2 or 3 months get to that 12 million that we need to get to.
It just seems like, and the other part of this in that poll that really hit me was the reason that people are starting to erode, and they really are,
Right.
is specifically the two things that essentially, I mean, among a lot of other things that Trump was basically won in on the margins last year. It's the economy and immigration. And I know we said so many times last year, they're going to be the dog that caught the car. I am honestly surprised that they caught it so quickly. Not that they did it, but that the American people have so quickly started to turn on this. It's encouraging. Like you said, there's a whole bunch of people out there we can get. And more importantly, for those of you who are trying to figure out, hey, who do I reach out to? I feel like I've talked to everyone, or I can't talk to this person, or that's fine. The doors are starting to open with a
Yeah.
lot of people. And I think that's a really important point. Here's
Yeah.
another
No.
one for you, Trippy.
Well, one thing
Go
I want
for
to
it.
add to that, what you just said, Alex, is look, and we've said this before. Now's not the time to say, "Hey, you stupid idiots, we're glad you're seeing the light. You're responsible for this." No. Actually, this is the time as you said, the door's opening. Now's the time to say, I'm really concerned about where things are going. I hope you are too. Can we talk about it? Here's what I'm concerned about. What are you concerned about? And bring them over because they are concerned on immigration. The lack of due process. They may have initially responded to those pictures, to the made for TV shaved heads and all that in shipping to El Salvador, but they are now he's underwater on that, on immigration,
Hmm.
on his policies, not by much. That's a more of a 50-50 thing, but that's far different from where it was, even with some of the
Yeah, which is closer
supporters.
to 2/3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, it does just seem the his and this is a synthesis. A couple people asked this. At what point do his excuses start to run out? And what I mean by that is, if you look at what he said about the economy, he basically said Q1 was the Biden economy. You see all his Truth Social posts. Now he's saying Q2 is also sort of Biden, quote unquote. At what point he's just going to keep saying that, and
well, we
that's going to
were
keep getting parroted? When does that run out?
well, we were running it at pretty strong GDP numbers all through. Um, the Biden, the last quarter of Biden. In the first quarter, actually, we're starting to see companies, and they're all reporting. Actually, most of the earnings reports and everything are great. It's not. It isn't. That isn't what created the negative print on GDP this quarter. That's that's the uncertainty. People, companies front loading of bringing goods into the United States so they can get them in as cheap as they can before the tariffs hit. It's all caused by the tariffs, all of it, and that's clear. So yeah, he's going to blame all this on but the thing is that's the interesting thing in the poll. He's getting in every poll now. He's way underwater on the economy. That's the first time that's ever happened. I mean, usually you can get away in the first. You're just in for 3 months. It's easy to do. It was the last guy who made this all suck. It's not my fault. I'm going to fix it because this is what he left us with. Um, and the problem is that everybody knows. There's not a single American who doesn't know that the tariffs have disrupted everything, and they're his tariffs and they're his policies, and that uh, and it's not just the tariffs impact on goods. We now have this. This is still the most amazing stat to me. 900,000 fewer Canadians came to the United States in the month of March than in the month of March a year ago. That was a 24% drop in visits from Canadians to the U.S. Now, here's another number. Okay, the booking of airline trips from future. We're now talking about future trips from Canada to the United States have declined. Future now. So last month it was 24. This month coming in. This month the new report came out yesterday. 70% reduction in the number of seats being booked on flights from Canada to the United States. We're not talking about 24% anymore. 70%, because March, a lot of March, April hadn't, the Liberation Day had not happened yet, and it was already declining. Just, I think, because of things like siding with Putin on Russia, declaring you want Canada to be your 51st state. I mean, that offensive stuff that he was doing to Canadians in the first place. But now with the tariffs, it's accelerated that, and so you're seeing um, a decline in visits from tourists from Europe and everywhere else. That's going to impact restaurants, travel, beer. Anybody in the hospitality, hotel workers, all that are going to be hit because of not just the tariffs, but the belligerence of the Trump administration, the way it's dealt with the rest of the world. That they don't, one Democrat I know, a leader who just got back from traveling through Europe, said it's amazing how the people that he's talking to, higher people in governments and around Europe, how they used to talk about us in adoring, revered terms, and now it's despicable despisement. They just despise what's emanating from our country in our name, and that's what's got to motivate 12 million Americans to stand up. I actually think but the other thing I think that's going on is, yeah, we got, everybody got hit hard. Couldn't believe, that the country did this. We're all stunned for the first, amount of days. Leadership wasn't there, got that. But I also think that makes people feel like that we're all, that the 3 million of us are alone in all this, that we're just, the only people who get it enough to go out and protest in front of NOAA or Veterans Administration or building or anything. I think every time we go out there and people see us, more people say, I should do that too. We can get them in. That's what I think is the most important thing. We're not alone. 52% of the American people right now agree with us. By the way, there was a big group in there that wasn't sure, was whether, whether he's really a dictator, but they're not saying he isn't either. So we can get those people. There's a lot of room here to grow this movement and protest and get to the numbers that will switch it, move things along and get him out, and literally run his ass out. And that's what I think we need to do. That's why we've got Lincoln Square to start, really giving voice to this movement, to give you the information you need. I've created, Alex helping create Says Us, a pro-democracy social network that builds trust and community and fosters democracy and gives us all a safe place to grow and get people motivated and find the facts that they need. And
Pictures
so,
of pizza.
we got to do all that. But get people, he's Alex. Alex has a special little post there, the Daily
Side
Beast.
project, yeah. Um, so I think we got time for one more, Joe. I think
Sure.
that was a pretty good play. That was a more hopeful way that we could end, but here's a good one from Mandy in Brooklyn. What's Trump's real play for 2028? Is he grooming a successor or laying groundwork to rewrite the rules? I know the answer.
Oh no, he's rewriting the rules for sure. One of the things that is concerning to me. So he's rewriting the rules. He's not. Look, it's clear he's not planning on standing for election in 2028. That doesn't mean that he's not planning on being president past 2028. It means he's not planning on standing in election with the American people, or at least one that's not uh, where the rules aren't changed, or the impact of what he's doing isn't such that he can't possibly lose. And let me tell you, one of the things that's concerning to me is uh, yes, it's true, Canadians are not coming here. It's true, Europeans are not coming here. It's also true that hundreds of thousands of Americans have left the country in the last in these first 100 days. They're moving. Actually, a lot of them are moving to Canada along the northern border. If you live in Detroit, Canada's just literally a half mile away across the bridge.
Yeah, we used to go
Uh,
for peanut butter.
well, yeah. The problem is if 50,000 Michiganders move to Canada because they're fleeing Trump and the authoritarian dictatorship, um, it makes it very difficult to win Michigan. And he doesn't have to. He doesn't actually need to change the rules. And so, one of the things I see that is concerning is the number of Americans that are making the decision or contemplating, leaving. And that literally is how he they the hard right authoritarians take over the country without ever firing a shot, or even having to put uh, uh, troops in the street, right? Because if enough pro democracy people leave, and the base, his base, is the only, basically, it's actually kind of what Abbott in Texas and DeSantis in Florida have been doing.
DeSantis, yeah. No, it's
Yeah,
exactly what they're doing. Yeah.
basically, if you hate all these people, please move to Florida. And by the way, if you're the hated people, you might want to leave Florida. Well, that's what Florida's done. That's what the DeSantis policies were about. That's what Abbott's policies are about. If you now take that they were the laboratories of autocracy, they were the laboratories that the right autocracy is going to school on and now applying nationwide. It's the same thing. We hate you guys. You should leave. Um, and everybody else stay here. It'll be a great country. I mean, it'll be, that is part of what I think their strategy is, and we need to combat
Yep.
that. And I think that's why it's so important now to get to that 12, 13 million people and higher. And as we've both been saying for months, no time to play dead. Now is the time to get active, to bring others to this fight, and to win it.
Joe, I think that is a great place for us to wrap up today. So, a couple housekeeping things. Make sure subscribe. You can get alerts. Check out our latest episode of that Trippi Show, or wherever you get your podcast. Keep sending us questions. Send them in the chats here. Send them to anything at Lincoln Square. You can always email that trippishow@gmail.com. Joe, any other housekeeping before we head out?
No, you could check out Trippi Takes on Substack, and
Oh,
of
yeah.
course all the Lincoln Square Substack offerings that are out there from and the podcast Emily's List, excuse me, Enemies List, Rick Wilson and other, and the Lincoln Project podcast as well. There's a lot of good
I am
stuff.
watching people subscribe on Substack right now. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Take care.
Bye, guys.